القلعة تقع ما بين مزارع
محمية
مثل المحمية، فيها غابات وفيها مزارع. يتكلم عن مبنى أثري بني في القرن الثاني عشر. فأعتقد نحن محظوظين اليوم ان
شاهد هذا على أرض الواقع.
الجالدين ايش يسمونه بالعربي؟ لا ترجمة.
عشاء خيري
أي حفل العشاء. أي حفل العشاء أنه يكون في مدينة مدريد وفي واحد من المواقع الأثرية. السيد إيميليو وجه دعوة لسمو الشيخ منصور وأيضا جميع الموجودين في اسبانيا.
توجه ايضا بالشكر السيد منويل على هذه الدعوه الجميله، وانا على ثقه ان الجميع اليوم راح يكون سعيد في التواجد في هذا المكان الاثري.
حاضرين. عموما مهرجان الشيخ منصور دائما عودنا على ان احنا نلتقي بالحضارات. اذا كنا في روما، اذا كنا في المغرب، اذا كنا في مدريد، اذا كنا في لشبونه، اذا كنا في اي مكان في العالم، نزور اماكن اثريه واماكن يعني حتى هو يقول لك هذه مش متاحه للببليك، مش متاحه للعامه انهم يزورونها. فاحنا بنحظى بفرصه زياره هذا المكان اللي هو يعتبر مكان خاص. سالت اذا كان هذا المكان مملوك للحكومه ولا مملوك لشخصيه، قال لا، ان هذا المكان شخصي. فاعتقد هذا بعد يعني شيء من الاشياء المميزه في
فعلا الملكية أثرية وذات طابع تاريخي بالنسبة لمدينة مدريد. تواجد المهرجان اليوم في هذه المنطقة الأثرية هو استمرار للزيارات الأماكن التاريخية اللي كانت في المهرجانات السابقة مثل ما ذكرت أخوي عمر. وهذا التزام المهرجان مع عام زايد، وقاله المغفور له ومن ليس له ماضي ليس له حاضر. هذا ما يجسده المهرجان في هذا اليوم.
So we got dress code today, the cheek for women and suit for men, yeah.
Yes.
So we got to wear a suit and a tie and everything. Okay, you invited us to the Castillo. Now we will invite you to one of the races, either the flat race or the endurance race. You will be watching horses.
Yeah, sure. It will be a pleasure. I will be delighted. Yeah.
All right, so we will arrange this to come and see. I'm sure it will be one of the greatest experiments in your life, and you will enjoy it very, very much.
Thank you very much.
So we have at the 5th maybe.
في إشبيلية راح يكون في سباق، وفيه السباق الغدرة أيضا لمسافة 100 ميل
في مدريد. يعني إن شاء الله يوم السادس نكون في. طيب محمد، خلينا نتكلم بشكل مختصر عن الجلسات الصباحية.
جلسات اليوم جدا مهمة أخوي عمر، خاصة جلسة الفرسان اللي تضم تواجد الفارس ريتشارد مولين، وأيضا تواجد المدرب إرنست أورتيل، تواجد عدة أسماء في هذه الجلسة.
هو المتحدثين بس خلينا نذكر السادة المشاهدين: ريتشارد مولين من المملكة المتحدة، سارة أوليفير من المملكة المتحدة، إرنست أورتيل من جنوب أفريقيا، كريس واستون من نيوزيلندا، إيان باترسون من جنوب أفريقيا، كاي شيرمان من ألمانيا، ماهي أرميدة من قبرص، أسينيا أموروس من إسبانيا، جمال حوت من كندا، وصوفي رالستون من إيرلندا. أتذكر إحنا كنا نتكلم محمد الصبح عن موضوع
الإصابات.
ايه يعني انا وياه قبل لا يبدا الاستوديو نتكلم عن موضوع الاصابات وموضوع التبرعات اللي
فعلا شاهدنا تبرع سمو الشيخ منصور بن زايد آل نهيان في سانتا أنيتا ديربي للفرسان. كان تبرع على جزئين، الجزء الأول كان لشراء سيارات إسعاف لمضمار سانتا أنيتا بارك، والجزء الثاني كان لدعم صندوق الإصابات أو صندوق التقاعد الخاص بالفرسان في أمريكا. مبادرة يشكر عليها سمو الشيخ منصور بن زايد آل نهيان، ليس غريب عليه هذه المبادرات الإنسانية. اليوم الجلسة أيضا الاهتمام بالفرسان والحوادث هي أيضا امتداد لنظرة سمو الشيخ منصور بن زايد واهتمامه بالفرسان والمحافظة عليهم من الحوادث. شاهدنا أيضا في الإمارات الحادث الكبير اللي تعرض له الفارس رستن فرنش، والاهتمام الكبير الذي حظي سواء من القائمين من الARA من جمعية إمارات سباقات الخيل أو حتى من المضامير. كان حتى مضمار جبل علي تم تكريمه كذا مرة، يعني أكثر من مناسبة،
وتم دعوته لاستلام الجائزة.
فعلا جائزة هيفي ميتال في شوط جودلفين مايل، فهذه أيضا تحسب للاسطبل سمو الشيخ حمدان بن محمد آل مكتوم.
نعم، وأيضا المدرب سالم بن غدير اللي كان فائز هو في شوط الجودلفين مايل. الجلسة الثانية راح تكون بعنوان الميديا داتابيز سيشن. أحد المتحدثين في الجلسة هذه أخوي محمد؟
الجلسة الخاصة بالإعلام والعلاقات العامة وقاعدة البيانات هي جلسة ذات شؤون وشجون كما يقال أخوي عمر، يعني إن شاء الله.
طيب المتحدثين مايكل أبو نجم، إبراهيم عمران، محمد النعيمي، كاثرين فيدلر من ريسينج بوست، ساتيا ناريان، فرانسيس ريفيس باريس تيرف من باريس تيرف، وجوناثان هورفيت، نادين فرامبتون، بيتر ستيبل، وميشيل شهدة من لبنان.
تواجد مثل ما ذكرت اخوي عمر، تواجد ريسنج بوست وتواجد ايضا باريس تيرف، هذا يعطيك المستوى العالي اللي وصل له مهرجان سمو الشيخ منصور بن زايد ال نهيان في استقطاب يعني صفوة الأقلام، صفوة الإعلام المهتم بالفروسية، وهذا شيء.
طيب في داتابيس اصلا في الخيول العربيه الاصيله؟
في، لكنها جدا ضعيفه اخوي عمر، يعني لا تكاد تذكر. يعني اذا انت في مثلا على مستوى الريسنج بوست لو تحط اسم اي حصان يطلع لك معلومات هائله جدا، متى انباع، متى انشرى، حتى يطلع لك الحصان. اذا تكتب مثلا يعني اي حصان مثلا يعطيك السنه اللي انباع فيها، بكم انباع، ومن كانوا عنده في المزاد، وشو كان اسم المزاد، وين، وأمه وإخوانه، وتاريخ كامل يعطيك.
نعم.
على مستوى الخيل العربية ممكن في جمعية الإمارات سباقات الخيل تحصل بعض المعلومات، أيضا في الفرنش جوكي كلوب تحصل بعض معلومات الخيل العربية، لكن لا زالت لا تقارن بالثربرد أو بالخيل المهجنة الأصيلة.
أمس أو قبل كنت أتكلم مع السيد خالد خليفة النبودة وكان يقول لي عن موضوع الإعلام ودوره في نشر الرياضة، خصوصا سباقات الخيل العربية الأصيلة. يقول في السابق ما كنا نشاهد سباقات الخيل العربية الأصيلة، الآن صرنا نشوف كل سباق في كل مضمار.
وهذا اللي حققه مهرجان سمو الشيخ منصور بن زايد، هذه الرؤية اللي كان يطلع لها سمو الشيخ منصور بن زايد بالارتقاء أكثر بسباقات الخيل العربية، بالرياضة بشكل عام، يعني حتى على مستوى القدرة، على مستوى سباقات الخيل العربية، مستوى الإنتاج، مستوى الملاك والمدربين، الكل استفاد من مهرجان سمو الشيخ منصور بن زايد من هذه النقطة بالذات.
نعم.
يعني صارت العملية شوية، اللهم يعني باقي بس موضوع اللي هو قاعدة البيانات لا زالوا شوي
نعم متأخرين فيها
كثير،
مش شوية.
يعني على مستوى إذا أنت تبى تطلع يعني مثلا معلومات حصان عربي يعني متواجد الحين، أو ما بنقول يعني قبل سنتين أو قبل 10 سنين أو سنوات ماضية، راح تواجه صعوبة في أنك تحصل البروفايل أو السي في الحصان هذا أو معلوماته، بينما على مستوى الخيل الثربرد تحصل ملايين المعلومات في يعني في دقائق معدودة.
نعم. الجلسة الثالثة بالنسبة لي السيدات في السباق، عندنا إيمان ساكال، شذرة الحجاج، هيدرا بيرنتسروف، ورابعة سدراتي، تيري ايتون، ماري بونروي، باربارا ديمويل، ولارا صوايا. ما ادري محمد اذا الوقت ما يسمح لنا، لان
لكن بالدور المرأة بصراحة يشكر عليها سمو الشيخة فاطمة بنت مبارك أم الإمارات على دعمها الكبير للمرأة في جميع المجالات.
طيب أنا أشكرك جزيل الشكر محمد.
أنا سعيد جدا بالتواجد دائما عبر قناتنا قناة ياس.
أكيد وإحنا أسعد محمد. Mr. Emilio, thank you very much for being with us on Yas Sport, and hopefully we are looking forward to see you tonight in the Castillo.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. شكرا. إذا مشاهدينا الكرام نذهب لمتابعة وقائع الجلسة الأولى مع ديريك تومسون وضيوفه الكرام.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to day 2 of what promises to be an amazing
أهلا بكم في اليوم الثاني للملتقى العالمي للخيول العربية الأصيلة.
from what 80 countries, nearly 500 people, and we're building up to what promises to be a marvelous endurance weekend on Saturday and Sunday. We're racing in Seville on Saturday and live Sunday night the gala dinner from here in Madrid. It's all happening. We had Real Madrid playing the other night.
لعب الريال مدريد منذ ليلتين مباراة عظيمة، ونحن في هذا الفندق
playing Atletico Madrid in the semi-finals of the Europa Cup. You'll be able to see you're at. We are live on Yaz TV. It's just gone 10:30 in the morning, so let's get straight to business. The first seminar today is all about jockeys' weights, how we can control our weight, eat more but weigh less. Let's find out more. Our moderator is the top Arabian commentator in the world. He comes from the United Kingdom. He's a top guy. Would you please give him a big round of applause? Gary Capewell. Gary.
Thank you, Tomo. Good morning, everybody. I'll introduce my panelists first. Richard Mullen sat next to me, dual champion UAE jockey and obviously ambassador to the Sheikh Mansoor Festival. And Sortel, champion trainer in the UAE, and we'll hear a lot about what happened to us a few years ago during this panel. Next to us, Chris Watson, who's now based in New Zealand but has spent years working for racing schools and various racing jurisdictions all over the world. Sarah Oliver, who's the Chief Executive of the Amateur Jockeys Association in the UK, and she is responsible for coordinating some of the jockeys for the Sheikh Mansoor Festival. Kai Sherman, who's obviously involved with the Sheikh Mansoor Festival as well as a jockey coach and works for the German racing school as well, former jockey himself as well, of course. Next to Kai, we have Mahi Aramaidi and Asiena Amoros, who are both from the Elixir Clinic in the UK, and we'll be hearing more about their work fairly shortly. Next to them, we have Dr. Jamal Hoot, who's also a doctor and involved in a different type of medicine. Again, we'll be hearing from Dr. Jamal in due course. And right at the end, Sophie Ralston is going to be riding in the big race on Saturday, rather, I should say. And she's based in the UK and is an apprentice jockey as well to a trainer who's based in Epsom. Obviously, we talk about jockeys as athletes, but it's obviously a pretty dangerous sport, horse racing. There aren't too many professions where you're followed around in every race by an ambulance, and unfortunately accidents will happen. We've got to try and make sure that we can help minimise them. One of the ways we can do that is make sure that we get jockeys to the racetrack in peak condition, both mentally and indeed physically, so that they can make weight and hopefully they can ride successfully in the races and safely. That's the most important thing. One of the ways obviously we can do that is to get them getting to the right track in the right weight. And we'll begin by talking to the two ladies who run the Elixir Clinic, Mahi Aramaidi and Asiena Amoros. They've got a clinic based in the UK, but they're also based in Abu Dhabi as well, and I think in LA as well. I was reading your website. The main thing really that we can talk to you about is getting the right nutrients into jockeys via what you have, which is a Vita drip. Tell us a little bit about that.
So as you said, well, our clinics are located between London and Dubai and Abu Dhabi at the moment, and we're looking into expanding. The infusions, well, the whole concept of our clinic is a wellness center. Saying a wellness center is we administrate intravenous infusions, but we also have a series of preventative medicine, which we run different kind of tests to see like what people, and necessarily not sick people, but quite healthy people, is a wellness center, what they're running low into, and how is their vitamins, minerals, and amino acid levels, and how their body is in generally doing. And the clinic, we only deal with natural ingredients, and we have different methods of administrating these ingredients into the body. As you said, well, Vita drip. Vita drip is our intravenous infusion, which is the main core of our clinic as well. But alongside with that, we have the nutritional therapy, and we also have the different kind of screenings that we do, and in order for prevention, it's preventative.
And what actually, obviously we talk about the Vita drips, it's the right nutrients and sort of vitamins, vitamin B3 and C and things like that. Just tell us what exactly is in it.
So, I mean, it's every single body needs the vitamins, the minerals, and the amino acids, especially athletes. Athletes, when it comes to the world of the athletes, they have so many restrictions, and they have so many restrictions in their diet, they have so many restrictions in what supplementation they can take. They're under a lot of testings and a lot of regulations that they need to follow. What our role is into that is to actually come and educate them and tell them on, and go through their body, go through a proper medical examination and check how their body is functioning and what they need and what they should be taking. Our ingredients, as you well said, our cocktails are based on the Mayor's cocktail, which is a formula that includes vitamin C, B complex, B12, which helps with the energy levels. You get magnesium, you get selenium, you get zinc. So they're all natural ingredients and in certain amounts.
So if somebody was to come and see you, how does the process work from the moment you would implement that, and how long would it take to see the results?
I'm sorry, again? Couldn't hear that.
I was just saying, how does the process work? So if somebody was to come to your clinic, from the moment they get there through the moment you implement it, I should say, how long would it take to see the results?
So the results are quite immediate. I mean, it's a medical process. When somebody comes to our clinic, they clearly see our doctor. We go through a consultation, and we will go through a deep tissue mineral analysis test to check their levels in the bloodstream before we start injecting anything in the bloodstream. Some of the people, they might not need injectables, especially if they're young athletes, like below the age of 18. We suggest that we support them nutritionally, but above the age of 18, we can introduce a small amount of vitamins in their bloodstream. Now, the result, as I said, is immediate. The main thing that you get with the infusions is, first of all, hydration, because everything is water soluble and everything is mixed in 100 ml of normal saline. Sometimes even less, depends on their body, as I said, and what the screening will come up to with. And what people will normally feel, and especially athletes, is that there are ingredients that they help the body to recover much faster. Or if they're going into a long training period, or they've been training for long, or they're preparing for a season, then it does help a lot to boost their body. And when I say boost with simple ingredients like B complex or B12, is to enhance their energy levels, and with a simple ingredient like vitamin C to help to boost up their immune system, and in order for them to not get sick or to really perform on the levels that they wish to perform. I mean, the infusions it's not magic. This is like eating healthy. And the reason that we suggest the intravenous infusions is because it bypasses your digestive system. Therefore, your body will absorb 100% of what we give you. And I mean, some people, they need one infusion, but it also depends on how their body is performing, if they've been good with their diet, and if they've been good in general with their lifestyle. Young athletes, what we see, and in general athletes, is that we find that usually they will neglect when it comes to their diet. Like they look for the fast solution, they look for something that is going to help them immediately. And what we do is more in the long term, and the results, you do see them almost immediately within the first 24 hours, but in a long term, you definitely notice the results.
And I suppose with regards to obviously them feeling better about that, it will help aid with recovery with injuries as well, I would guess, to speed up that process too.
The clinic, as I said, is a wellness center. So the infusions, yes, they do help with that quite a lot, because amino acids, simple amino acids, ingredients, for example, zinc and magnesium, it helps quite a lot with the muscle recovery. But we also have different kind of services as well. Like we have cryotherapy, we have local cryotherapy, and we have a group of practitioners in our team that they're focused on alternative medicine, and they can help on the restoration of the body. And we work with excellent people as well around us, and we work with the nutritional therapy as well. And yes, so.
Now, ring Gassier now, I know she's quite shy, but it's important because I was looking on your website. You don't advocate people to stop having a healthy lifestyle. It's important to get the balance right along with the VitaDrip that you have with the intravenous lifestyle.
Actually, we do have people that don't want to have injections, so they can come see the doctor as well. They'll do a full evaluation. They will check what vitamins they are lacking. They can always take them orally. So we can advise them from A to Z, also in other ways of having a normal diet and all the nutrients that they need.
And to put it on, obviously, both the pair of you have co-founded this particular clinic, but you're both medically trained as well. It's not something that's just sort of randomly appeared. You've got the scientific background to back it up.
Yeah, Mahi and I started doing this treatment with various doctors in London 5 years ago, and that's how we got into it and we learned more about this treatment. And now we're always around in the clinics, but we do have a lot of doctors and nurses working with us.
And sat next to him, I'm just going to bring in Dr. Jamal Hoot now, obviously, who's been involved with the series we know all about, or some people know all about Dr. Jamal's work. Obviously, you've been a doctor for quite some time as well, Dr. Jamal. You're now involved in complementary medicine, I can never get this right, Nabi Purad's allergy elimination techniques is what you specialise in.
Yeah, this is the way to choose what to eat and what to eliminate from the food elements that we have. And it's the endless story that everybody needs to lose weight. And how to lose weight is just to choose what's best for you. And through this technique, we can eliminate the bad things and reintroduce what are the moderate things to continue the life. And we know that it's not only the process of losing weight, it's more important how to manage and to keep this weight down. And that's what we aim when we say that we have to put a strategy for weight management. And it means not just losing the weight, just maintaining an ideal body weight for the age, sex, and the life. So we need to put a strategy for this weight management later on. And it includes what to eat, how to eat, and what we need to introduce with the food. We have to include exercise on top. So it's the type of food that we have to have. It should have more or less low calorie and low fat so that we induce less calories to the body. We have to increase the fibers in the diet, which including vegetables. And third, we need to drink more water than inducing sugary drinks. And this is the most important, most people do. So, and the fourth thing in the strategy is just to induce exercise and increase exercise. And this is the strategy for maintaining a good weight.
And you've been involved with how you sort of treat this with a bit of muscular testing and can be cured with acupuncture and pressure treatments as well, along with those dietary traits.
This is when we try to improve on the diet items. We do acupressure to improve the intolerance that the people have on different items. And this makes them to maintain their weight better.
So we've worked out there's ways that the jockeys can get down to the required weight quite safely. I'll bring in Richard Mullen here actually quite quickly. Richard, you aren't a jockey that struggles per se with your weight, certainly not now that you're based in the UAE. You've obviously got a little bit more time you're very prepared with your diet, I think it's fair to say.
Yeah, firstly, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. Personally, let me firstly thank His Highness Sheikh Mansoor bin Zayed Al Nahyan and Her Highness Sheikh Fatima bint Mubarak for their continued support of this amazing festival. Secondly, a special thanks to Lara Sawaya for her continued devotion to this festival. There's not a day goes by that what she achieves doesn't surprise me. Most recently, she received an award on behalf of the festival, I think at the Abu Dhabi Sports Awards. So congratulations and thank you, Lara. Sorry to go off track there. To go on about, obviously, maintaining your weight. I've always been quite lucky in the way I've been able to manage it, but you know, as you get older, it does begin to get more difficult. And I agree with what you know, certainly what's, you know, with looking after your body. And it's like anything. It's like if you're driving a Ferrari, you're not going to go and put, you know, cheap petrol in it. We're athletes, and I think the mentality of jockeys, I must say, with the help of this festival, certainly the work that the John Moores Clinic have done, or the university have done in the past, I've seen a big difference in the mentality of jockeys, certainly in the UK, and certainly, you know, what I've seen over the 3 years of being part of this festival, their mentality and their approach to seeing themselves as sportsmen, and we are sportsmen. And this is something, when I started out, you know, it wasn't thought of. We just thought we were jockeys, and we didn't take care of ourselves. But ultimately, looking after your weight, it goes down to, you know, yeah, you can do all the diets in the world, but ultimately you have to eat right and you have to exercise. It's a simple fact. one thing I would say to any young jockey that's coming through is there are no corners to be cut. You've got to do it properly, and the more you look after your body at a younger age, the longer your career will continue to prosper.
We've seen, obviously, in the UK, there are quite a lot of jockeys now that we see that on a regular basis now that are actually quitting the saddle because of weight, but they've actually got the right mentality now because they've not done the things that through the racing schools we've been told that they shouldn't be, like the flipping, as we talked about before, but their mentality now is they're actually quite stronger about it.
Yeah, and I think that helps with, obviously, with what the festival has done in bringing jockeys to different countries and seeing how different jockeys approach certain things. And we're in a room full of, different individuals from different backgrounds, but ultimately we're here for the one reason, Arabian racing, and the support that jockeys are getting now, like you say, obviously, the jockeys on this festival have Kai Sherman to go to. He's a former jockey, he knows. Myself and Xavier, if we're ever around, don't feel afraid to come and ask us any questions. But I think the support that they've had from their own racing jurisdictions now, I think, personally, what I saw from the outset, I think Australia set the benchmark, to be perfectly honest. I think they did a fantastic job. What I've seen of their jockeys when they've come to these festivals, and I've seen them in Abu Dhabi, the way they conduct themselves, the way they manage their weight, I think they started the benchmark of where other jurisdictions needed to be. And, I must admit the UK are closely following now. So they're getting all that support. And like I say, you will see their careers prolonged because of this. Obviously the jockeys that are retiring now are struggling with weight issues. And it's more that they probably didn't have the support back then as what they're getting now. And also, it's not just about weight and gaining weight. It has a huge effect on the mentality of a jockey. If you haven't eaten for 2 or 3 days, one, you're not strong enough to go and ride the horse. You're not doing yourself justice. You're not doing the connections justice. The owner that's booked you to ride the horse, the trainer, you're going out there riding a horse, and you shouldn't be doing it. You're not putting 100% in. And also, it has a mental side effect that, you get angry, you get grumpy, we've all done it. I can openly admit it. I've been, if I've tried to cut a corner and sweat quickly, you have a bad attitude, and it's not the way forward. But you learn from that. But you see so many jockeys now coming out with mental health issues, and this all goes back to the weight and the way they've conducted themselves over many years. And hopefully now, like I say, with the festival and all the racing jurisdictions are now getting support, not only for their health, but for me, the more important thing is the mental health issue that jockeys go through.
Yeah, it's a big thing involved with the PGA back in the UK, and there's different rehabilitation centres as well, and there's a lot more support now, isn't there, than there was obviously when you started riding. And I suppose some of the old school sort of jockeys, old habits die harder, don't they? It's very difficult for them to sort of change.
It is very difficult, but I've seen in recent years that there are older jockeys that certainly are changing, and the one thing that keeps us going are the younger generation. These guys riding now, are raising the bar, they're raising the standards. They certainly, the standard of riding has improved than when I started riding. So, thankfully, I thank them very much, because they're keeping me going, because I'm wanting to improve. I'm feeling, like you say, since I moved to Dubai, my regime isn't as vigorous as it was when I was riding in the UK, when obviously it's 24/7. It's 7 days a week. In the summertime, you've 2 meetings. You're driving from racetrack to racetrack. You probably spend more time in a car sat on the motorways than you do on an actual racehorse. So, I think that ultimately has prolonged my career, and certainly being in Dubai, I'm very fortunate. I have a good job, and I have many connections that have supported me. But ultimately, like I say, it comes down to the younger generation urging me on, because I don't want them beating me. I don't want, I'm starting to see myself where I started in the wearing, was probably sat down the end now. I'm now on I'm closest to the door, so it's next stop, you're out. So, you've got to continue to improve. And like I say, I feel fitter and healthier than I have in many years. And I think that comes down to the festival once again, because, each year I'm learning more things, more, as jockeys, we're quite secluded in our mentality. We think everything is just about us, but you know, like Xavier said yesterday, you know, we're the cherry on the cake. Sometimes we're not the cherry, we're the annoying ornament that's on the cake that gets it wrong. But, you know, without the breeders, the owners, the trainers, you know, we are the finished product. So you have to go there 110%, you know, mentally and physically in good shape.
It's good we are seeing the sort of mentality of the young jockeys through the racing schools and the work with the Sheikh Mansour Festival Series. It is changing. I'm going to bring in Chris Watson. Now, Chris is obviously now based in New Zealand, works for the racing committee out there. But obviously, Chris, you've been based in Malaysia for some time, obviously Turkey and Australia to begin with as well. You've been all over the shop.
That's right, yeah. I've been to a few conferences too, and I remember us talking about jockey weight management back in 2014 and 15, and there was some robust discussions about jockey weight, and we talked, and the Sheikh Mansour Festival commissioned research through John Moores University. Lara set up IFRA, the International Federation of Horse Racing Academies, and we had the cherry on the cake, which was our racing ambassadors in Xavier and also Richard, and their communication to everyone on this issue of jockey weight management, as well as the talk and the networking between the IFRA members, and also the work that John Moores University. I think we've come a long way, but there's still some work to be done, and I think, Gary, we have to consider that, yep, we've got to a certain point, and now we must acknowledge that there's some factors that we need to sort of influence and control, like the environment, the jockey's environment. It changes from place to place. Gary said I did some work in Malaysia, and I used to go to track work in Malaysia, and the boys in Malaysia would sit and have roti and noodles and rice for breakfast, but they never have a weight problem because every time they go out and ride a horse, it was in 32 degrees and heat and humidity, and they'd be sweating. So there was no weight problems in Malaysia. Yet in New Zealand, where I'm working now, we do have some problems. We do have some issues, and we have jockeys travelling to the races for 4 and 5 hours at a time. New Zealand's a big long place, and during those trips, on the trips home, they're hungry, they're thirsty, they might have a can of Coke, they might have a can of Lift, they stop off at McDonald's, and these are the sort of things we're trying to educate about. So it's we've still got, in some countries, we've got quite a lot of work to do. In other countries, as Richard mentioned, Australia is really got it right. Turkey also has got it right. There's a professional sports nutritionist working and planning the meals at the apprentice school for 50 apprentices. And that works really well. If you see the Turkish rider here, Mansoor on Saturday, he's the perfect apprentice. He's a professional young man. He looks after his weight. He's cautious about his meals. I had dinner with him last night, and I had a beautiful hamburger. He had a grilled chicken and salad, which I was delighted to see. And there's a real consciousness about with the Turkish boys, because they've had 2 years of education around weight management, and they know what to do.
So obviously you're based in New Zealand now, and you do actually employ a nutritionist to educate the jockeys there. You show me the leaflet the nutritionist there sends out, but again, he's trying to educate everybody properly. One of your top jockeys had a bit of a disagreement, I believe, with this particular nutritionist.
Yeah, we had our leading sports nutritionist in New Zealand, a lady who works with our leading rugby team, and also some of the leading ladies teams in New Zealand. And we asked her to work with our leading jockey, who was having some weight problems and who was constantly having weight problems. And we had some great outcomes. But then he sort of changed his lifestyle a little bit over a certain period, and he turned up to ride in a Group 1 race and couldn't make the weight. Now, this had really terrible consequences. He was stood down, he was fined $5,000, he was suspended for a month. Xavier, you talked about the team yesterday. He let down the team. He let down his trainer, his owners, the staff at the stable. He let down the racing public, who had taken very short odds on that horse, very short odds on this jockey in the Jockey Challenge. So there was a whole lot of consequences in somebody not making the weight on the day. And we were quite disappointed because we were hoping that this jockey would become an ambassador for fitness and weight management, and that hasn't happened. He's really a work in progress.
And obviously that has a knock-on effect with the apprentice jockeys coming through. They see what he's done. And
exactly.
What actually in New Zealand, what is, because I think, again, this will vary from jurisdiction to jurisdiction, what is the maximum overweight, or you're not allowed to put any overweight up at all in New Zealand?
No, there's already an allowance for the vest.
Right.
I think maybe it's a half kilo, that's all.
Because again, that will vary, I think, from jurisdiction to jurisdiction. Catering on racecourses as well for jockeys is something that is massively different, maybe from country to country, but particularly in the UK, from track to track, Rich, I think it's fair to say. Tom Marquand, actually, who was involved with the Sheikh Mansour festival, he went to Australia a couple of years ago. He actually tweeted, I think it was Tuesday, the catering, it was at Salisbury Racecourse, which is obviously a fairly decent track in the UK, completely everything salad, how it should be basically. But Richard, at some tracks in the UK, it's not always like that.
Yeah, I actually saw that photo because I remember being at Salisbury about 6 or 7 years ago, and it certainly wasn't that. I think it was chicken nuggets, wine gums, and all sorts of junk that you wouldn't eat or shouldn't eat. But this is the whole thing. I think this is why race courses are improving, but I think it basically comes down to the festival and you know, the investment that His Highness has put in to the John Moores University, because they're putting it out to the UK. I think the UK was a long way behind. Now, I would agree, personally, I think we have some of the best jockeys in the world in the UK, if not the best, but on a physically and health-wise, probably the poorest, you know, dietary as far as racehorses go. But I think this is obviously the work that His Highness has put into the John Moores University, that we are now seeing, you know, a big difference in the UK racecourses. Like you say, at Salisbury, you saw the video of the tweet about the food that was on offer. But it is about not only just educating the jocks, but it's about educating the racecourses as well, because we don't decide what's on offer in the canteens. You know, we go into some canteens and there's deep fries with chicken wings and things like that. That, you know, okay, we don't want a big full course meal, but you know, you want to be picking things that are healthy to you. You know, things that are going to fuel you as you know the day goes on. But you know, some of the things that were put on offer for us were a complete disgrace. I mean, you wouldn't feed them to dogs, to be honest with you. But like I say, I've obviously seen improvements now. I'm pretty sure, you know, some of the younger guys that are here this week for the race will acknowledge that and have seen, obviously probably wouldn't have seen the difference because they weren't riding back then. But yeah, I think it's not just about educating jockeys, it's about educating race courses and everybody in the industry.
So we're making progress, at least that's a good thing, but obviously there's still work to be done with regards to that, but we are at least moving in the right direction now. We're going to talk a little bit about sort of accidents and insurance now. Obviously we don't want to see the accidents happen on the racecourse, but it's inevitable with such a competitive sport that unfortunately that will happen. But it doesn't obviously just happen on the track, it can also happen in the yard as well, and we'll bring in Ernst Ortel now. Obviously Ernst, quite well, you're going to be a film star pretty much soon, aren't you? That's coming out soon, but more on that a little bit later. But it was back in 2013 where unfortunately you had an initial accident riding a purebred Arabian, Scoop, one of the pretty decent actually purebred Arabians, and unfortunately obviously you had quite a nasty accident. Tell us about what happened.
Generally we were riding out and the horse whipped round and I snapped my leg, and it's, you know, you only realize then how little support we get from the powers that be. And I mean, the stable I was with, they looked after me, and we have insurance which is compulsory in the UAE, but generally in the UK and everywhere else they got the Injured Jockeys Fund and the Jack Berry House and things like that help you with rehabilitation and things like that, and we are lacking in the UAE about that. And they're doing a documentary on me, and in November, we're doing a premiere in Abu Dhabi. And with the help of the Sheikh Mansoor Festival, we're going to try and highlight the importance of having a structure that can help all stable staff, and not just injured jockeys or thing, but all stable staff. And you know, so when something does happen, that they can get the support. And it's something that I think we're looking forward to, and hopefully it can, you know, really improve racing in the UAE. And it once again shows that the Sheikh Mansoor Festival, you know, is doing these things, and it's helping everybody. It's not just helping the trainers or the jockeys or the owners. It's the whole family of racing, and that's the thing that we want to strive for.
And obviously, we'd all agree with that, I'm sure, but with regards to what happened to you, there was complications with, obviously you had your leg operated, and was at the World Arabian Conference in the UK, where unfortunately the complications came to light and you had to spend quite a bit of time in the UK. I think you had 8 operations in total.
Yes, yeah. No, I stayed 3 months in hospital, and yeah, it's funny, the injured jockeys fund in the UK were, you know, that they came and visited, and Jack Berry House, they asked and gave a lot of support. But things like, I was very disappointed with the UAE in not showing any support in that manner. And that's why we want to try and highlight the need for such a thing. And, you know, and hopefully with the festival we can change this, and you know, bring to light that everybody needs support, and you know.
Because I think you were a champion UAE trainer at the time when this happened, weren't you?
Yes.
And obviously it was a long sort of process getting as the back in the saddle, as it were. But obviously you're training now, but it was important to you to get, because obviously I know how important it is for you to actually get a feel of your horses that you do train. That's something that you've made quite clear in the past.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, you know, we all do it for the love of the horses, and my passion is riding, and I just love to have the feel of the horse when I'm riding it. So getting back on a horse was one of my main goals, and you know, through perseverance and help from others, I managed to do that.
And yeah, I think we should all, applause for that. The mental strength, obviously, you must have shown. You could be quite sort of odd about things, but the strength that you have shown to get back in the saddle has obviously been the inspiration of Amanda Roxburgh, who obviously won a Dali Award a couple of last month, and she's obviously she's followed you around quite a bit and done that documentary on you, which I think comes out on Amazon in 2 days' time.
Yeah, on the 8th of May.
4 days' time, 5 days' time. But obviously, as you say, there will be premiering in Abu Dhabi, hopefully in November, so that's to look forward to.
Yeah, no, thanks.
Sophie Ralston, right there at the end, obviously based in the UK. You also had an accident in the yard at work. You're based in Epsom. You've had sort of 4 or 5 winners, and you've obviously ridden a few times now in this series. Obviously, going to be riding on Saturday. Just tell us about what happened to you.
So in October 2017, I was riding out for my boss, and a horse whipped around, spun round on concrete, and landed down on top of me. I was actually very lucky that it was only my foot that I broke, and I actually got help from the Injured Jockeys Fund. But my yard, I was lucky enough that they had insurance riding out at home. I got paid in full, actually, for all the time that I was off. And there's another insurance scheme, Professional Riders Insurance Scheme. Because I got hurt at home, they actually wouldn't help me out. But I was lucky enough that I was paid in full from work. If I had fallen at the track, they would have paid me roughly around £20 sterling a day.
And that's something that's done on a sliding scale, isn't it? Depending on how many rides you've had that particular year or season, I think it is, isn't it?
Yeah, so you've grade 1 to 6 or 1 to 9, and you're paid from roughly £20 a day to over £200 a day, depending on if you've had more than 600 rides.
obviously quite a hot topic, insurance, but obviously when you come and ride on in these particular races in different jurisdictions, you have to get your own insurance taken out for those rides, don't you?
Yeah, you do. So that's something that I'd like to see changed. I'd be a lot more comfortable if I was insured coming out here. I did have to go and get my own private insurance, and I don't know really if I got hurt on the track, are they actually going to help me out, or are they going to make a big deal out of paying me out some money if anything happens? And I do have my own private insurance in the UK with Bupa, but they won't cover me abroad. So, and I'm paying them a lot of money. I thought they would cover me abroad, but they won't.
And I think that's something that the PGA have suggested. I think they forwarded the Bupa sort of idea of insurance on to you, didn't they?
They did, yeah. So I assumed that they'd help us out abroad because they came so highly recommended, but they don't. So I'd definitely like to see some kind of a policy for us where we could be definitely covered when we're riding abroad.
And again, I think this is something that varies from country to country and jurisdiction to jurisdiction, because I was talking to Kai earlier, obviously he's the jockey coach for the Sheikh Mansour Festival, but you were saying with regards to German jockeys, whether they be apprentice, amateur or professional, if they're insured in Germany, they're insured to ride all over the world.
The insurance in Germany, if you get the license, you have directly an insurance. So it is for the amateur clubs, this is the basic insurance. You can make it a little bit more higher. You have to pay 100 or 150 euros more. And the same is for the apprentice rider. The trainer pay for you the basic insurance. The most of the trainer pay the middle one. So you will have, if you fall down, you have 50 euros per day. This system, I think, is very good because it works all over the world. So if I have my apprentice rider getting out of Germany, riding now in Spain, or when we have race in Abu Dhabi, there are also insurance.
Yeah, that's really good, because obviously it doesn't happen like that in the UK, and I'm not sure it happens in many of the other jurisdictions actually as well. But obviously, Kai, you're involved with this this series as employed as a jockey coach. You go around with all the jockeys. You walk the course with them all before racing, whether they be the apprentice jockeys or indeed the lady riders as well. How have you seen a change since you've been involved with this series? I think for 3 years now, with regards to the jockeys and the overall sort of standard of riding as well, to a certain degree, I guess.
The festival Sheikh Mansour, it's a very good idea. Thank you to Lara, and also thank you to Her Highness and Sheikh Fatima to give us the opportunity. The last 3 years, I hear also from the racetrack, they say everything is fine, they are very good, they are happy to have us, that we are working with them, because we have no more accidents, no more happen, the jockeys are more better. It's very important, walk the track before the race, talk to them and give them a good feeling that they feel like be at home. Sometimes it's very hard for them to travel 10, 12 hours to the race and they are tired, so it's a good idea.
And I'm bringing Sarah Oliver now as well. Obviously, Sarah, you're involved with the coordination of the jockeys for this series, but you're also chief executive of the Amateur Jockeys Association in the UK, and you have been for, I think, around about sort of 15 years now. Again, insurance is quite a hot topic, even with plenty of your members as well, I'm sure.
It is, particularly when they are getting injured on quite a regular basis over jumps and pointing and on the flat. The difference with the amateur jockeys and the professionals is that the amateurs are actually insured with their license to ride anywhere in the world, which is a shame that that isn't the same for our professional jockeys, because it makes life very much easier. But yes, insurance is always a hot topic, and unfortunately it isn't the case that every single country has the same rules either in racing or with insurance. That would also make life very much easier. So we always ask jockeys who are going to be involved in the series to make sure that they try and get themselves insured just to make sure that they're covered for any consequence.
Yeah, we've seen that obviously the accidents can happen at any sort of stage, really. But with regards to the Amateur Jockeys Association, I was having a good look on your website, the advice that you sort of give with insurance also, but we'll go back to the making weight again as well. You try to, seems nothing to say, you're trying to make them as professional as possible, even though they still have amateur status.
Well, over the last 10 to 15 years, there's been a huge change in the amateur jockey scene at home, in that years ago you'd see your characters who were doing it literally just for a bit of fun, but those people are now down to single figures. There's only about 5 or 6 people that actually ride as amateurs in the UK now for fun. The rest of them very much take it as a career path and using their amateur status to gain racecourse experience before going on to take up a professional career. So along the way, they are being encouraged to watch their weight as part of their everyday jockey way of life.
So we've seen in the UK the apprentices aren't insured to ride abroad. In Germany they are. The amateur jockeys are as well. Chris, what's the situation in Australia, where you worked obviously for quite some time before you moved to Turkey?
Excuse me. The Australian system is very good. First of all, they're covered by what they call work cover, which covers them for their wages if they're injured and they're off work. It also covers their hospital bills. There's an insurance called total death and disability. So if they're disabled and they're not able to work again, that insurance will cover them up to 500,000, I think. And there's death insurances there as well. There's a National Jockeys Trust, so if there's any gaps within the insurance, the National Jockeys Trust is very well funded through the Jockeys Association, so they're covered through that as well. Yeah, and in addition, there's also a retirement fund. So if jockeys retire all of a sudden, they've got access to the fund, and there's a certain percentage of the riding fee goes into that retirement fund per jockey. So it's quite a good setup, and if they ride internationally, if they go overseas, then each jockey can take an extension on their current insurance to ensure they're covered for riding overseas.
And I think back in the UK, Richie, with regards to the PJA, there's a certain amount of the fee that goes towards insurance as well, isn't there, I think?
Yeah, I think that basically comes out of what Sophie was saying earlier on. PRIS is their insurance scheme. I believe they have a career-ending insurance in the UK as well, which is, I think, when I left, it was, I think, 100,000 sterling. But there's loopholes in that.
I think that's on a sliding scale as well.
It's on a tier system, and it's, you know, I'm afraid I completely disagree with it, because you shouldn't be tiered. Because it's the same thing. The PRIS system is done on a system of how many rides you had the previous year. So for someone like Sophie that probably only started riding a couple of years ago, wouldn't have as many rides. So, you know, you're getting based on what you had the year before. So, and this career ending goes the same way. So it's 100,000 if you're Ryan Moore, Sylvester de Souza, or Frankie Dettori. If you're poor old Sophie that's starting out in life and has this career-ending injury, it could be 20,000. I think that it's pathetic, to be honest with you. I think it should be a set price. I mean, I'm not involved in the UK racing, so I don't want to get into any arguments that way, but I think it should be a set basis regardless of who you are. If you have a license, you're on that course, and unfortunately circumstances happen that is a career-ending injury, everyone should be the same, paid the same way. On a closer, a more personal issue with insurance, I've had quite a big role in the insurance in Dubai. I've sat in many meetings with the powers that be, Mali Al-Basti and Frank Gabriel, because we had at the beginning, when we started insurance, it was quite difficult. And the one thing I'll say, it is very, very hard, and like Sarah said, asking her jockeys to get insurance. It's near on impossible to insure one jockey individually. I've tried it. You have to insure them as a group, and whatever insurance Kai has in Germany, I'd love to speak to him, because if we could get this worldwide insurance, I come back to something that happened yesterday when we were on about, you know, stabilizing the whip rules or whatever rules, you know, or standardizing, sorry. If we could standardize a general insurance, you know, bond for jockeys worldwide, that would be great. But like I say, we had issues with the ERA, and I must admit, we have a very good policy now with AXA, and unfortunately, we had a couple of incidents this season. Most notably, Royce and Friends had a horrific fall at Jebel Ali. You know, a few days later, Dane O'Neill broke his collarbone. But they were very well looked after. And what we have now is, because we found 2 or 3 years ago, I remember Wayne Smith got injured in Abu Dhabi. And the problem we had was, Wayne was taken to the hospital via ambulance, but the hospital that he went to didn't accept the insurance that he had. So it's very difficult. So what was put in place is now we have a gentleman that goes to the races every day. I can't think of his name off the top of my head, I apologise, but he comes to the races, so he's there. If there's an accident and the guys are off to the hospital, so for instance, when Royston got taken off to Rashid Hospital in Dubai, a fantastic trauma unit, he was taken there and looked after very well. The gentleman went with him, he had all the information, and he was able to sign it. Whereas before, Wayne turned up at Abu Dhabi and was turned away. You know, this can't happen anywhere in the world. So we're very fortunate. Obviously, there's always going to be improvements on insurance schemes. But I think we're in a good place. And also, we have a similar thing to PRIS that I think, off the top of my head, I can't remember, I believe it's $1,000 per month. So Royston was continuing to not only have his wage that he was working for the stable, but also he was getting support from the Maidan or ERA Jockey Club. But they looked after him very well. I mean, Xavier and myself both visited him. The care and attention was fantastic. And like I say, I must admit that it's taken a while, and we're relatively a new racing community as opposed to the Jockey Club and the French Jockey Club that have been going for many, many years. So we're still learning about getting insurance things, but I would say, having sat in meetings, which I thought it was quite simple, that we need this policy, we need that policy. It is very, very difficult to insure any sportsman, regardless. I mean, if you go and get car insurance and you put on this thing, jockey, you've gone from paying £1,000 to £5,000 because they just don't want to take that risk. So it is very important, but like I say, it'd be interesting to see what scheme Kai has. And also going back to what Sophie has, she has Bupa Care. Bupa is great if you're in England. When I moved to Dubai full-time, I had the same policy, and I had it for my whole family. I was paying an awful lot of money. One of my kids got sick. We went to the hospital, Bupa Care. It's invalid. It's invalid. I then had to change to Bupa International, which is now what I have. So when I'm around abroad, I'm covered. Yeah. But like she says, it's interesting to see if, for instance, anyone has a fall, they will insure you, but not for a racing incident. You know, you can put in equestrian, like Ernst said, you're insured for an equestrian incident, but that automatically, insurance companies will always see a fine line that, well, hang on, you were racing, that's not included in the price. So I think, you know, it would be a good idea, and I think from the festival they've done so many wonderful things. I think, you know, as far as weight issues and everything, I think if we can all get together and try to come up with a, you know, what we have in the ERA is very good, but like I say, there are issues with these guys traveling around the world now, and the world is a very small place in racing. You know, we tend to travel under many continents on a weekly basis to ride. So if we can, with the help of His Highness and the festival, if we can get our heads together and come up with some solution, that would be fantastic.
Well, maybe something we can look into. Kai, did you actually implement, did you sort this insurance out in Germany, or was it already there when you were was already in place when you were there?
Can you say again, please?
The insurance that you've got that covers jockeys worldwide, was that already in place when you took your position at the German Racing School? Was it something that you've actually sourced and sorted out?
I was thinking about, talk to Sarah about this, so I have to ask in Germany if they're working together with undercutters also. And this insurance, it's good because it's the basic insurance. You get it directly, automatic with the license. Without license, you will have not insurance. Without insurance, you will not get the license.
Good.
So that's interesting.
And then you can make it step by step more higher. This means that you get more money when you fall down per day.
It'd be interesting to see if we could get that sorted. Please, Laura. Can we have the mics, please, for Laura down the front?
This is for Ernest. You said, Ernest, you were disappointed with UAE.
Yeah.
But UAE is always around you to support you. Otherwise, you are not a trainer in the UAE.
No, I said I was...
And when you were injured that day, I remember the story, it was in 2014 in London. You had pain in your leg, I remember, and you were sitting in the panel of the racing and training. And that time, you can smell the, how you call it? The infection in your leg. Even the people that were around you, and you were very pissed off. You remember that? And that time, you went with your friend to a hospital. And Sheikh Mansoor Festival supported all that time the stay of this young woman.
That's right. Yeah.
In the hospital. UAE did not leave you, Ernest. Sorry. You cannot come and say, I am disappointed with UAE. Sheikh Al-Yazia supported you with a documentary. She is UAE.
No.
And all the sponsors that came behind you, Cavallo, Set, Al-Awwal, and Equicare, came for your film that they supported with Amanda Roxborough, that did about you a film, how it was painful for you to lose your leg, and what the consequences you have done. I think UAE have done a lot for you.
No, I think you misunderstood.
I did not misunderstood.
No, what
Everybody
I was talking about is the Emirates Racing Association, the ERA.
ERA is not our thing.
But
you
exactly
as a trainer,
from the Arabian world, I received a lot of...
Yeah, but you cannot come and say I was disappointed with UAE. Come and say I was disappointed with the ERA.
No, but
there's a difference between a country and the ERA. I cannot accept that.
I'm sorry that you misunderstood. I most probably worded it wrong.
Yes, you worded it wrong, and this is the country behind you that is supporting you today.
No, I know.
Thank you.
Yeah, but it's just the thing is that we had... I was feeling that we didn't have a lot of support from the racing community, from the Arabian family. I've had a lot of support, and that's why I said it's something that I think we should try and help the general staff in the UAE. Is we haven't got any support for the general staff in the UAE, like the Injured Jockeys Fund, which they don't just support jockeys, that they support the whole...
You're talking about the Jockey Fund. We supported somebody that fell down last year. We were in the World Conference, Her Highness Sheikh Fatima bint Mubarak in November, Conference for Training and Education. What was the jockey, Richard, that fell down in London and had a problem, and he was riding Freddie?
Yes.
Sheikh Mansoor Festival was the first to support Freddie.
No, that's what I'm saying. It's not the... I'm talking about generally the racing authority is the Emirates Racing Association in the UAE, and the support, they do not give much support to any racing staff or injured people in the UAE, and that's why I'm saying we need to highlight this and to be able to get these people to get some support.
We had an accident in Brazil. Kai remembers it. The girl is an apprentice jockey. She fell from the horse and they sent her to hospital. Then the girl died, but she died not because she fell from the horse. She died because she made like an embolie.
Hemorrhage.
Yes, hemorrhage. And that was the main cause of what happened, and Kai was there. We took care of her parents. We even paid for the body, supported the parents to take the body to Germany. So please, do not come to the UAE flag.
Now, I apologize for getting the wrong idea, but my aim point was towards the Emirates Racing Association, which is the ruling body of racing, and I felt that...
Ernest, a racing association is different than a country behind you. This country is supporting every single person of us. If it wasn't for that flag, we are not here today.
Helal, did you want to? No. We'll open it up to the floor now. If anybody has any questions, please raise your hands. We've got a few mics. I think there's somebody at the back. Tomo.
There's a good saying, you can't be overinsured.
Moi, je voudrais dire quelque chose. Là, j'ai entendu un homme tout à l'heure quand il a parlé, Monsieur Hortel.
I have heard lots of elements because there is not a single country, there is not a single country compared to the Emirates. It's a fantastic country. They've never ever forgotten to help people. I had problems there. They had always helped me. The country had helped me. And I would like to say that you cannot talk about the country. You shouldn't say what you have said, sir. It's impossible to admit it.
So something else that maybe we can talk about another time, but I think does Elise have a question? Do you want the mic? Just bear with me 1 second, sorry. Yeah. Yeah, Elise.
No, I did not have a question. I just wanted to maybe clarify a little bit. The support that we are talking about, it's more a financial support for the future. You know, like assurance, usually they give a cotization, they give something for the future. And this is what we lack. We don't have assurance for our staff. Like, for example, if you want to get assurance for the staff in Emirates, regarding horses, it's non-existent.
And that was something that I think you were trying to mention as well, wasn't it?
Yeah, well, no, I was just talking about a broader thing. I just wanted to make it the awareness that we can. I'm not trying to knock the UAE or anything, but I was just trying to make an awareness with things.
One thing I want to answer about it.
Please.
The UAE will not allow anybody to have a visa without insurance. So please, for God's sake, this is a stable. You cannot have one employee without having insurance for him from the government. We cannot do his visa. Even myself, with an owner of a company. Everybody who has a visa and even who wants to come to the UAE has to have a travel insurance. So please, the insurance exists. This is a law. The law of the country. You cannot do a visa without having insured the person pretty well before taking the resident visa.
No, we're not talking about insurance. We're talking about the...
She's asking about insurance about employees.
All employees,
Your staff
by law, all employees have to be looked after.
Yes, and your staff for
but
sure.
But the thing is, when you have insurance, there's a certain amount they pay out. And like my leg, it costs £78,000 to renew, and the insurance paid 10,000 dirhams.
Okay, I need to tell you something.
It
depends on the insurance every person does for himself. Once you know you are working with horses, you should yourself, you care about yourself, from, even they are not supposed to give you the biggest insurance. I have Bupa, maybe you cannot afford Bupa or he cannot afford Bupa, but at least there is other insurances in the UAE that are really good in the premiums.
But,
okay, you depend, but the thing is, unfortunately, it's always depending on, you know, we have to hit on someone. Always we have to hit and go back on someone. ERA can do insurances for everyone, but ERA cannot pay Bupa for everybody. This costs too much money, and this depends about age also, Ernest. Once you are older, you have, and now there is tax in the UAE. So everything is going up, and ERA is doing its best to do insurances for every single trainer and every single jockey, and they are not leaving them like that. When you go to another country, I will not mention the name, the jockeys are not insured. They go and ride without insurance, and this is not accepted. ERA has done insurance for its jockeys. Sorry, and we have to give big applause for ERA.
Yeah, good morning, everybody. As Lara said, myself and Richie, we face a problem because we are based in UAE and we were going to ride in our neighbors' countries. And one of them appear in one of the meetings and say, guys, you have 3 meetings to get insured yourself because the jockey club will not insure you anymore. Okay, and then, okay, so we try to find insurance, but whenever you try to find insurance, you go yourself or you go a group of 5, 10 jockeys, insurance, they don't want you because they know the risk, they know the expense it can cost them, and they don't want to insure us. So we are lucky, I think, in UAE, the ERA Association is covering us well so far. So we have to thank them, but still there is some lack, which probably happened to Mr. Ortel, but his case is probably different. We are employed by ERA. ERA is covering us. You were at the time, you were not working for ERA in a private stable. So it's every case different. But most of us are employed by ERA, and we are well covered. There is some probably things which we could improve, but the insurance don't want to. Because when we were facing the problem, you remember, Richie, to go outside, to ride outside, basically our insurance was covering us only in UAE. So we went, Richie and myself, to the insurance company and we told them, look, we are agreed to pay whatever amount you will ask us to be insured, at least in the Gulf. The insurance replied to us, sorry, we won't do it. So that's the problem we face. So I don't know if, unfortunately, there is no one from ERA, I think, or from the insurance who we could talk to make the things improving. But I think the case of Mr. Ortel was different because he was working for someone private. So you can't blame the UAE, or you have to blame the person for who you are working who didn't insure you very well.
Now, the thing is, I'm not blaming anyone. What I'm trying to say is I wanted to highlight the need for a fund like the Injured Jockeys Fund, whereas in the UK and around the world, in America, if you work for any stable, regardless of what insurance you have, if you have an accident, you can go to Jack Berry House and the Injured Jockeys Fund, and they help and they support you. And you know, some people have a lot of accidents and they have life-threatening accidents. I mean, I'm one of the lucky ones.
Yeah,
so people are paralyzed for their lives and they need support. And that's what I'm saying. And
I do agree. And it's true we don't have this in UAE.
And this is what we don't have. And this is what I want to highlight. And I would like to make a fund or to help get a fund going that we can help stable staff and can support them when the time and need comes, you know. And this is the reason for doing it.
Exactly,
Now maybe
that's a good point.
I misworded it, but the idea is that I wanted to do something like that that would help all stable staff. And when they get a time of
of need, it's there to help them and support them.
Yeah, I agree with Ernst. Like, this would be a great project to have, but you have in the UK, you have Oaksey House, which is based in Lambourne. You have one in Newmarket, and you have one recently built in the north of England in Jack Berry House. How many years has racing in England been going? These houses were opened in the last 10 years. Like I say, racing in the UAE is a relatively young, so we're improving. And trust me, I've been sat in meetings with these guys with the ERA to get insurance for us, and they've worked extremely hard because, like I say, getting insurance is very, very difficult. And I think the policy we have now is very, very good. Yeah, I agree.
Exactly.
There are tweaks. There's tweaks in everything. We can improve anything. We're talking about diet and everything. We can improve that. You know, we continue to improve. But what we have in place now is very, very good. Ideally, it would be great to have a course doctor. That's a very difficult thing to have, you know, because the problem with racing in the UAE is it's seasonal. It doesn't exist like in the UK where it's all year round. In Australia, it's all year round. In the US, it's all year round. So our racing calendar starts end of October and thankfully finishes the middle of April next year. But it's a very, very small season. So even then, you're insuring guys not all year round. You're insuring them in a small period of time. But I've got to hand it to the ERA because, like I said, I've sat in many meetings with Marley Al-Basti and Frank Gabriel, and you know, we've come up with a policy now that it seems to work. And like I say, the way Royston and Dane O'Neill and horribly this year was a horrible year for casualties in Dubai as far as horses go and as far as jockeys getting injured. It was a bad year, but I can honestly say, having been to visit those guys and the way they were looked after was second to none.
Exactly. Yeah, you remember, I was with you. And even myself, when I had my accident, the insurance we had at the time covered as well. Cover me well.
Exactly. That's moved on from the 2 years of when I kicked you.
So your fault. No, but I think the things are really improving, and we are really well insured in UAE. That's the message I would like to say. And we still are lucky we have insurance, because you remember we were facing this problem on our neighbors' countries. So thanks again to ERA and the support they give us.
Father Del Nabuda.
Hi, I am one of the private in UAE. We face a problem, it's true. I think most of us, we think that if we have a visa, we should have insurance. This is normal insurance, and it should be goes with the your visa for the health insurance. But we are talking about accident insurance, and there is not many insurance company in UAE expert in this. So it will be very ideal, and they will help all the private owners or trainers jockeys who can cover themselves under umbrella of ERA or any certain company. And this is what we are looking for, because we are not expert. And as Richard said, with one word, the insurance can play in the policy and you can't get anything out of that. So it will be very ideal if all of us get this policy under umbrella of ERA or the festival. We don't want anything, but we need them to teach us, to put us with the right company internationally, okay, where all of us, we should work. Because in the end of the day, we have a staff as a groom. They come from poor country, and we need to look after them. They are a human being. We can't just, okay, there is professional people, professional jockeys who's educated, who's like in Europe, knows what they are doing. They can read that policy, but those poor people, they doesn't know. So we need somebody to help us. Thank you.
I think Victoria Shaw has got a question as well. If we could pass the mic back to Victoria, please.
Okay. Yeah.
Thank you, Gary. Chris, good morning to you. I just wanted to perhaps engage you in the conversation here, further to what Ernst was broaching the subject earlier. Were you in Australia when we had a barrier attendant that was kicked behind the gates at Moonee Valley, and unfortunately the young gentleman suffered the injuries he incurred resulted down the track as an amputation. In this situation, work cover, which you mentioned earlier, kicked in and attended to all of his ongoing costs and medical bills and whatnot, and further support. But I think for other jurisdictions, Gary, you said Australia set the benchmark with jockeys and of course their health and welfare and their eating standards, or Richard, you did that as well. But in Australia, even our car registration costs, I pay $800 a year to keep a car on the road. A component of that car registration goes into the work cover pool. And some of that money is set aside for, of course, our riders and other people injured in racing as well. Maybe you can sort of perhaps touch on work cover as we look at other jurisdictions that join us here today in this forum, how that looks after not just jockeys but also other people on racetracks.
I wasn't in Australia when that accident happened. I wasn't aware of it, but I know that work cover in Australia and also in New Zealand, it's called ACC, and it will cover anybody on the racetrack. In fact, it's so good that me as a foreigner in New Zealand are covered under ACC. So if I have an accident and I'm off work, I'll be covered on my average weekly earnings. And I'm also, all my hospital bills are paid. And then of course it's up to me. If I want to take out additional insurance as a self-employed person, then I can do that. But you're right, Victoria, it's set up so that there's the car registration, for example, there's money from that going into the work cover.
So I'm paying $800 just for a small private vehicle. If you were having a commercial vehicle on the road, obviously your costs are higher, or for a truck, but all of that money is pooled towards this system where we take funds from that to look after people that are injured, also those that have road accidents as well. Irrespective of your private insurance in Australia, if you're engaged in a car accident, unfortunately, the TAC, the Transport Accident Commission, jumps in and usurps your insurance cover and looks after all of your costs and ongoing medical care, and that also goes into our jockeys and other people injured on race courses as well. So I know that some jurisdictions don't engage in wagering, but even our wagering system in Australia is structured so that a component of the takeout figures of that is raised in taxes, that goes to paying for hospital costs in Australia for the general public or general hospital system. So there are ways of harnessing money from the public in various taxes to perhaps that other jurisdictions could look at going forward in the future to raise money to look after people in racing, because racing does provide so much for the broader social community.
Correct. As far as I'm aware, also, there's a very small percentage, might be 1% of prize money, is going to the jockey and industry welfare program, including the National Jockeys Trust. I think that might be right.
And again, I think that would vary from country to country and again, jurisdiction to jurisdiction. Do we have any more questions for the panel? No, okay. Obviously, it got quite heated there for a while, didn't it? With regards to some of the accidents, I mean, injuries yourself on course, Richard, have you had many of those, or even in the yard?
Unfortunately, yeah, too many. Probably the worst one I had was about 11 years ago. I had a very successful season in Dubai. I was joint champion, went back to the UK. I just attached myself to a big stable, and I was back 3 weeks, and I was riding at Leicester, swung into the straight, and the guy on the inside just decided he wanted out. Came out, I clipped his heel, went down. When I looked at the fall, I thought it was pathetic. How did I fall off? It was a silly fall. But when I looked down, I literally shattered my wrist. And you know, it was just the way I landed. I put my hand out, and it obviously broke clean through. And obviously I went to the hospital. I was out for, I think it took a while, because they actually sent me home. And anyone that's been in the UK, on a Saturday night, you don't want to be going to accident and emergency, because there's all sorts of people there. And like I say, this is what I say about, you know, I revert back to Dubai and the UAE, that the hospitals are fantastic there, the facilities. When I was in the UK, I went in at 5 o'clock in the afternoon, straight from the racetrack, and I was sat in a hallway on a makeup bed till anyone came to see me at midnight. And as I looked across, and I was there on my own, actually one of the other jocks had come with me, I looked across and Richard Hughes, our former champion jockey, was in the same corridor with a punctured lung. Now, this is unfortunately the National Health Service for you in England. So I got sent home. They said it was broke. They carted it up. 2 days later, I had a phone call to say they got the diagnosis wrong, and I had to come back and have it pinned. So that was probably my worst fall. Interesting injury I had this year was I rode a winner for Mr. Al Nabuda and Ernst, and kindly, as I took the saddle off the horse in the winner's enclosure at Sharjah, he very kindly double-barreled me in the knee, which I'm actually still having physio on, actually. It's still giving me pains, but it's part and parcel of the job, you know, it happens. But if you think about, every time you go on the track, you think about what might happen, you know, your mind's not on the job, you know, it's part of our job. And as jockeys, you ask anyone, they will, you know, most guys will try and ride with broken bones and injuries because you don't want to give that right away, you know, and that's probably our downfall, and that's probably why in later life we probably struggle to walk and struggle to get out of bed in the morning, because naturally we just want to continue and we kind of brush aside injuries. So like I say, I rode most of this season with an injured knee, but thankfully it was nothing major.
That's good. I think Xavier has something to add.
The name of the person you are looking is Satish.
Sorry?
The name of the guy you were looking for is Satish. The guy...
Sorry, yes, Satish from the ERA. Thank you, Xavier. Well, he's actually from AXA.
No, he's ERA.
Okay.
I was just wondering, with Richard telling that he was falling the wrong way on his wrist, do the jockeys have any training in falling off, like...
plenty of practice.
Like after voltige and after you learn it.
We do this in the UK.
I believe in the UK, yeah. Obviously, sir, we have to elaborate more on, I think, more for the National Hunt races, but I still haven't perfected it after many years.
I've actually done some training in Ireland. You get pushed from a height. It's only about the height of the step on the stage, but they teach you to roll into a ball in the Irish Racing School, Racing Academy and Centre of Education. It's part of the 10-month course. So that's pretty good.
And
I think when you fall, it's a split second. You don't have time to think about how you're going to roll yourself
it's certainly instinctive to crawl into a ball as well when you've got
and I think
7 horses coming behind you.
I think there is a machine in Lambourne as well where you can do that as well. I think John.
And I think that's mainly. I think it's to educate and school up the National Hunt jockeys. But
and of course, obviously, you guys are going a good bit quicker if you have a fall. Obviously, riding on the flat rather than the National Hunt guys.
Yeah, whereas I think instinctively we're probably a little bit sharper, that you just tend to just crawl into a ball and pray that there's no one coming behind you. But unfortunately,
but statistically, jump jockeys are falling off every day of the week, whereas with the
absolutely, yeah.
It's,
I mean, I think 1 in 3 rides they fall. So I take my hat off to those guys, because it's. I don't think if I had 1 in 3 I was going to fall, I wouldn't be sitting here talking about insurance. I'd be working in an office on a typewriter.
Do we have any more questions for the panel at all? No. Okay, well, there's one, sorry. Could we?
Bonjour.
I'd like to ask a question. I'd like to ask a question. When we talk about jockeys and we talk internationally, per country there is a jockeys association. Per country there are several associations worldwide, and they are going to negotiate all sorts of insurance possibilities. Each employee, for instance, should have a contract and should be insured in the case of accidents at work and so on and so forth. If the association normally has to negotiate the contract, a reliable contract, they would guarantee, for instance, in case there is, I would say, if the jockey is unable to ride anymore and he has no money to live on, this insurance should give money for him to live and his family to live out of this money. It depends on associations, it depends on jockeys' associations, and they should have, the same way they have a manager controlling the contests, they should have someone managing the insurance contracts also and helping them.
Yeah, I think most jurisdictions around the world will have a jockeys association per se. In the UAE, we don't. You know, basically, we're employed by the Emirates Racing Association anyway, so our insurance comes through them the minute we're employed. That is, you know, because obviously in most racing jurisdictions, a jockey is self-employed anyway. So it's down to you or your association to go ahead and find you the necessary insurance. But like I say, in the UAE, we are all employed by Emirates Racing Association, so they are, they are our Jockeys Association, but we don't actually have one. I think the Emirates Racing do a very good job as it is, and without being head of it, I'm kind of the spokesman for the weighing room as far as meetings go when it comes to insurance and safety matters. But I agree, most jockeys associations will have that, and they'll have a career-ending insurance, like you say, in England. We actually have in the ERA, and I was quite involved in this, was about 12, 13 years ago, the riding fee in the UAE was 300 dirhams. Myself and Ted Durkin had many meetings with, at the time, Finn Powery was the chief stipe. And we felt that it wasn't enough for the jockeys, and not for just myself and Ted, because we were quite successful, we were getting many rides, but it was more for the guys that were going to Abu Dhabi's and these places for 1 or 2 rides a week, putting themselves at risk. We didn't feel it was appropriate, you know, a feasible sum. So what we did do was, this is when the insurance started to come into play, we now basically get 500 dirhams a ride, but it isn't actually 500 dirhams. We get paid 600 dirhams. So in these meetings, we organise that 50 dirhams goes to an insurance scheme, obviously to pay for our insurance for the jockeys. And the 50 dirhams of those, every ride, goes into a benevolent fund that we set up for any of our fellow colleagues. God forbid anything ever serious happened to them, or there was a serious fatal injury, that we had that pot in our hands that belongs to the jockeys. It's coming out of our riding fee. Now that's there in place with the ERA, and I have several chats with the senior stewards to make sure it's still there and everything. And like I say, God forbid if Royston's injury had been any worse, we would have then sat down together as a jockeys and decided, right, okay guys, what do you want to do with this? I mean, the fund has already, it got to, I mean, 5 or 6 years ago, it got quite high. So I asked the guys what they wanted to do with the fund, and they all wanted to take out what they had in. So they all individually took out what the jockeys that were past and present in the UAE that were riding, took that fund out. Now the fund is still growing again, because obviously it's what we're putting into it. So it's then, it's decided that, like I say, God forbid anything serious happens to a rider, whether he needs support from us or whether his family needs support, it's there for them. And that's something that we set up with the help of the ERA and the board members and the stewards. So that's something that we did as jockeys ourselves, because we don't have an association per se. It's basically the ERA that helped us, you know, set this up.
Gary, in Australia, it's the Jockeys Association. It's quite a powerful Jockeys Association, and they negotiate and manage all the insurances for the jockeys. Okay. And that seems to work quite well. And you can check that out on the website of the Australian Jockeys Association.
There we are, Tom. I think that's taken us up to 12 o'clock.
The money jockeys, are they covered?
Everyone that pays into it is
Richard was great. You were all super. Can we give them a big round of applause? That was fantastic. Wonderful. And all this talk of nutrition has made Tomo very hungry. So lunch is about to be served. Just to say, before you go to lunch, we start again in literally 1 hour from now. Could I ask you all to be in your seats at 5 to 1, because we're going to have a little exercise workouts after lunch, all right? So big round of applause to the panel this morning. And after lunch, we're talking about television, radio, public relations, and media. Could we now have the official photo for everybody who is on this session? Would you please stand and come and get close together, and the Emirates girls will come around you. Mohaf will take the official photo. We're going to go for lunch. Omar, where are you, big fella? Where are you?
إذن مشاهدينا الكرام، تنتهي الجلسة الأولى في هذا الصباح بعد نقاش عن مستقبل الفرسان فيما يتعلق بالوضع الصحي ونهاية المسيرة إذا كانت سببها الإصابة. المتحدثين في هذه الجلسة كانوا يتحدثون عن أمور مهمة لربما كان من أهمها وضع الفرسان في السباقات والأموال التي تخصص من أجل العناية بالفرسان المصابين. كان هذا الحديث في الفترة الأولى. سننتظر حديث أكثر تشويق ما بعد الفترة الثانية بعد استراحة الغداء إن شاء الله في تمام الساعة 1 ظهرا بتوقيت مدريد، على أمل الحديث عن الإعلام ومن ثم الحديث عن السيدات في السباق. حتى ذلك الحين ابقوا معنا ننتظركم.